Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Green, and many of you may know me from the shows which we have on the American Guns and Glory Network and Fired Up with Bob Irwin. And many of you may have seen me at some of the gun shows here in Las Vegas or in Pahrump, Nevada. Today we're here to have a special report to introduce the members of Clark County to District Judge Joe Hardy, who is currently the judge in Department 14 of the 8th Judicial District Court. We're presenting this today as an additional point for advertising for Judge Hardy because of what's going on with COVID-19. So we thought we'd introduce Judge Hardy. And here he is today. This is Judge Joe Hardy of District Court Department 15. Good afternoon, Judge. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And Judge, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into what you do as a district judge?
Sure. So I am a third generation Nevadan, actually. I grew up in Boulder City, born in Reno, but raised in Boulder City. I graduated Boulder City High School, went to college at BYU, Brigham Young University, continued on there for law school. While in law school, I was an editor of the Law Review and ended up graduating cum laude. Came back home to Clark County to practice law, which I did for several years. After graduating, I was fortunate to find a wife, and now we're married, raising two teenage boys. There they are. My wife Yvonne, son Benjamin, son Joseph. Now, of note, that picture is from my investiture. So that was, let's see, about 5 years ago now. So those boys who look small there are much bigger,
yes,
bigger now. And practiced law for almost 15 years, and then became a judge.
Well, very good. Well, sir, how is it that you received the judgeship?
Sure. So I first ran for judge in 2014, as you know, and for an open seat, and didn't quite make it, is what I tell people. I came very close to being elected by the voters of Clark County. But in that same election, an appellate court was finally created here in Clark County in Nevada, and it opened up 2 seats here. And so I applied to be one of the appointees. Now that's an arduous process where you fill out a huge application. You look for people to support you. They send in letters. You tell the commission about everything you've done. Now when I say the commission, that's the Nevada Judicial Selection Commission, statewide commission, bipartisan. So they review all the applications. That time there were 2 open seats, and there were 25, I believe, people who actually applied. So I was one of those 25, and then was interviewed by the commission. They then voted to send the top 3 on to the governor. He interviewed the top 3 and then selected me.
Well, that's excellent. And tell us, we've seen it at gun shows many years ago, and recently before the COVID-19 crisis stopped all the gun shows here in Las Vegas right around January and February. We have a number of people who always ask me either at gun shows or they call me on the phone and they're looking to see why they should vote for particular judges. I never tell them who to vote for, but they always have questions on what the judges do.
Sure.
And can you explain, or take some time, sir, and explain, what does a Nevada district judge do?
Yeah, there's any number of different things, as you know from practicing in front of us. We have potentially split civil criminal docket. So what that means is you have some cases are criminal cases, some are civil. So I tell people, you know, on the civil, it's people and businesses who are suing each other. On the criminal, it's somebody who's alleged to have committed a crime. And in the district court level, one thing of note is we are what you call general jurisdiction. So we have the jury trials, whether it's a civil jury trial or whether it's a criminal jury trial. So your larger cases, essentially, not your misdemeanors, not your small civil cases, the larger ones.
Yes, and in connection with that, sir, are there other types of courts within the district court?
Yeah, there are. We do have specialty courts. For example, for a couple of years, I was part of the business specialty court. Now, what that is business-related civil lawsuits. So where you have businesses suing each other or business-related issues, you have judges who specialize in that. As the slide indicates, there's any number of other specialty courts: construction defect, mal, as we shorten it, the medical dental malpractice. You have veterans court, where the judge there works with veterans to try and address some of the underlying issues that may give rise to their conduct. We talked about business court, mental health and competency court. Again, similar to veterans, where you're trying to treat and help and address the issues that are underlying the conduct.
Thank you. May we have the next slide on the for the judge, please? What do we have here, sir? We have a slide here on COVID-19. Can you address, if you may, can you address something about that, about what is going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19, and let us know what your department is doing, what you understand the other courts are doing?
Yeah, sure. So it has greatly affected the courts, although we all are still in court. So the courts are not shut down by any means. But it has affected us. The primary way it's affected us is that there are no jury trials happening, whether civil or criminal. We want to protect members of our community, and understandably, they wouldn't want to be coming in, sitting right next to each other right now. So the jury trials have been temporarily stopped.
Was there an order to that effect?
Yeah, our chief judge, Judge Linda Bell, issued several administrative orders, is what we call them, addressing all these types of issues, that extending a lot of the deadlines, because a lot of steps that you normally take before a trial, people aren't able to take right now. And so a lot of the deadlines have been continued or stayed.
How are you dealing with the attorneys and the litigants? Let's say the criminal cases, because that's where the emphasis of my practice is. What are they doing, like with video technology?
Sure. So with the criminal cases, the hearings, unlike civil cases, in the criminal hearings, as you know, the defendants, the accused, need to be present there in the courtroom. And so we have two methods, basically, of addressing that. One is by video, as you noted. We have this program, it's called Blue Jeans, where people can appear via video from the jail across the street into the respective judges' courtrooms. The other method, as you also know, Mr. Green, is we are holding sessions in a special courtroom that's known as lower level arraignment court, where the defendants are behind a large plexiglass wall, basically, of plexiglass. So they're appearing, there's a microphone, they can speak with their attorneys. So those are the two, and we're holding hearings, nonstops.
And these hearings, so do all the judges appear at the same time, or are they like scheduling, like have an appointment to go down to this arraignment court?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically the latter. So you have a schedule where, because it's only one courtroom versus, 30 or whatever we have, so each judge trades off, essentially goes down there for the couple hours that the hearings are being held. And then we go back up to our chambers to prepare.
Well, what adjustments are being made? Because again, this is a very critical election. There's over 100 candidates for the various departments in district court and family court. People are going to be very careful about who they select. What adjustments are being made? Do you know about in the court calendars to accommodate the interests of the civil litigants and the criminal litigants?
Yeah, so as you noted, there are a lot of hearings being done still by video or by telephone or decided on what we call the papers. And the deadlines, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the deadlines have been extended because people can't meet. Like, for example, when you take a deposition in civil cases, most often it's done in person with several people there, and people's lives and their schedules are all, thrown off, basically, is a way to put it. And so we're working as a court to make sure, one, we're accommodating people in those issues, but also, however, at the same time, making sure that justice is still done and in a timely and fair manner for everyone.
Has this created any longer hours for the staff because of the adjustments in what they have to do?
So not really. The hours generally already are long because people a lot of times will be thinking, why isn't the judge in the courtroom? Because I'm not always in the courtroom. Well, when we're not in the courtroom, we're preparing for what happens in the courtroom. And when I say we, I don't just mean me and my fellow judges. I'm referring also to staff. So we have a law clerk, a judicial executive assistant, a court recorder. So we're all always behind the scenes in chambers working to prepare for whether it's hearings or trials. Yeah.
Can you describe this preparation? That is it legal research? Is it reviewing court papers?
Sure. Yeah, all of the above, actually.
Yes.
So legal research, the law clerks are recent graduates from law school. They do a lot of the research, reading the papers. So I'm one of the judges who reads everything because, with all due respect to law clerks, they're right out of law school, whereas I graduated law school now 20 years ago. So I read everything that the parties file. So they file a motion, the other side gets an opposition, then a reply, and then we have a hearing. So reading, writing, research, an interesting aspect that I didn't necessarily appreciate as much as an attorney is the amount of orders that we issue because we have so many cases. There's a lot of work to be done with that as well.
So do you work long hours?
Yes.
So this is not a 9 to 5.
No, it's not, and here in Clark County, as probably our viewers are aware, the county's grown tremendously in the last 20 years. And our caseloads here as district court judges have also grown. And so we have actually one of the heaviest caseloads in the country that we're always having to, manage and stay on top of it. And there's a famous legal saying, justice delayed is justice denied. That's very true.
We hear about a lot of times where the judge has to have a certain demeanor in the court. Can you tell our audience about how what you feel that you're doing up on the bench in respect to the people who may be angry with you and you make your decisions, which may not be which may offend at least the defense attorney or the prosecutor or the civil attorneys. Can you tell our audience about how you feel that your demeanor is right on track with what you want to do and be reelected?
Yeah, so I think, one thing as we were talking about before the show, some people will say, well, is a judge like Judge Judy?
Yes.
Well, no. The answer to that is is no. What most people want in a judge is someone who's, you know, even keeled, has a fair temperament, is willing to listen, is willing to put in the time it takes to prepare for those few minutes there in the courtroom. I've been fortunate that attorneys, parties all recognize that I'm one of those judges, you know, who takes the time, listens, and as you noted, Mr. Green, half the people are going to lose, you know, because the way our justice system works, there's one side and the other side. And as long as the judge listens and is fair and prepared, that benefits everyone.
I see. Now, can you, again, for our listeners and our viewers, can you describe again, because some of them don't know the difference between what happens in a civil case and what happens in a criminal case. Can you tell them how you've seen your civil case and your criminal cases in your department?
Some of the differences
Yes, sir.
between the two? Sure. So in civil, there is a lot more. This is my, you know, general characterization, but there's a lot more paperwork. Civil attorneys, they like to file a lot of motions. There's a lot more discovery, which is the parties trying to find out facts about the other side's case. A lot more motion work, so a lot more hearings. Whereas criminal, they do take precedent over civil cases because they have, you know, generally, as you know, a right to a speedy trial. And so there's more work as a judge in terms of reading things in civil cases. They both ultimately lead to trials. However, both at the same time, most of the cases, both in criminal and civil, resolve at some point prior to the trial.
And can you describe what a resolution is like in a civil case?
Yeah. So a civil case, it's a settlement where the parties agree on a number, a dollar amount, if you will, where the defendant generally will be paying to the plaintiff rather than go and roll their dice in front of a jury. In criminal, we generally call them plea deals, where the defendant will recognize, hey, there's this possibility that I may be found guilty by the jury, and will take perhaps a lesser charge or less time in exchange for the state giving up the right to take it to trial.
Yes. Now, in your campaign, sir, you have some opponents, and can you describe that your experience and how you feel that this experience would benefit the people of Clark County in retaining you as a district judge in Department 15?
Sure. So foremost, I am the sitting judge. I've been on the bench for 5 years now, and that, I think, speaks volumes of you know, you do undergo a lot of training when you first become a judge that my opponents obviously don't have. I have the experience both in civil and in criminal trials now as a judge. I've been practicing longer than both my opponents. I'm top rated by Martindale-Hubbell, as you know, is the preeminent ranking system, whereas neither of my opponents is even rated.
I see.
Yeah.
And now, we have up here on a graphic about Judge Joe Hardy, and can you tell us, can you tell the audience, first of all, what an endorsement is?
Sure.
And then what endorsements have you received from various organizations in Clark County?
Yeah, so an endorsement is from an organization that says, hey, we are supporting this judge or this candidate for the job. One thing you learn when you're out campaigning is you may be surprised, as I was, about how many different organizations there are. So for example, now this slide, due to the COVID and coronavirus, is from my retention campaign in 2016. but many of these organizations are endorsing me again. So for example, you see the badges there. Those are various law enforcement agencies. There's a coalition of law enforcement agencies here in Nevada that does endorsements, and I am proud to be endorsed by them again. That includes Metro, includes Henderson, North Las Vegas, Fraternal Order of Police. All those law enforcement organizations have supported me. There's also various unions that do endorsements, various community organizations that do endorsements, and I'm endorsed by any number of those. I could rattle them off.
How do you get the endorsement?
Sure.
I mean, you just don't walk in and say it, but how do they endorse you, sir?
Yeah, so it really depends on the organization. So a lot of them already know me, you know, from years and prior campaigns. Some will do an interview, an in-person interview, which is, you know, that's been shut down though. Many will have you fill out what I would call an application, where they ask you certain questions and you submit your answers. So usually there will be an interview, usually some type of application, or one or two, or both.
I see. And when you get the endorsement, so when they endorse a candidate, that's the only candidate they're endorsing for that particular department?
Usually I'd say 95+% of the time. Sometimes you'll have an organization that does what they call a dual endorsement, but almost always it's, hey, this is our candidate for this particular department.
And can you tell the audience what it's meant to you to be appointed as a judge, retained as a judge, and now up for re-election? Can you tell them what that's meant to you
Sure.
personally and your family?
Yeah, it's very much an honor to serve the members of our community. Having grown up here, my parents taught me, you know, community service, give back to the community that's given back so much to us. And I'm trying to do that as a judge, and believe I'm doing a good job, as has been indicated in attorney surveys.
Yes.
As well. It really is an honor to serve our community here in Clark County.
Okay. And obvious question, is this take away time from your family, or is there some balance?
Yeah. Well, sure. So campaigning definitely takes a lot of time away from family. I tell people, you know, campaign's the price I pay to keep my dream job. And I say that with all sincerity. When I externed for Judge George here, that's where, oh, maybe one day in the far future I could be a judge, and that was my dream, and I worked hard to obtain that dream, and here I am.
Is that United States District Judge Lloyd George?
Yes.
He's still a judge.
He still is,
appointed by
yeah.
President Reagan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And the building is named after him.
The building
and
is
he
named after him.
Still works there.
Yes. Do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to have so that the audience knows particularly about you and the way that the voting is going to happen coming up in this in the primary within the next several weeks?
Right. Sure. So this is a unique situation, to say the least. We are now in the primary right now, actually. Ballots have gone out. It's a mail-in primary is what they're referring to it as. So you have your ballot. There are many judges on there, many judicial candidates, because we're all up at the same time. So Department 15, Judge Joe Hardy Jr. So you fill in your ballot, fill out your ballot, mail it in, or you can actually drop it off. There's numerous locations throughout the county where if you're hesitant to send it in by mail, you can physically go there and drop it off. Now you have to do that, either mail it in or drop it off no later than June 9th.
June 9th, yes. Remember that. June 9th is the last day to drop it off, or is it mail it in, or it must be received by June 9th?
So you can it must be postmarked.
Postmarked.
Or dropped off on or before June 9th.
Yes. Well, anyway, I want to thank the audience. I want to thank Rigel Studios. And most of all, we want to thank our special guest, Judge Joe Hardy Jr., running for re-election in District Court Department 15. And they can go on your website, which has been noted a couple of times. There you go. I want to thank you, Judge, for taking the time out of your busy day and to come over here and speak to the members of the public here in Clay County. Thank you again so much, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.